is David McDivitt. I am with McDivitt Law Firm. We are a Colorado personal injury law firm, workers' compensation, defective drugs, kind of what we all do. I am going to talk a little bit about our journey as a family-owned small business with data and how that journey has helped us evolve into the firm that we are today. This is the title of my presentation. And as we get into it, you'll understand why it looks like this. This is how a small law firm leveraged technology and data to build a larger small law firm. This is my family. This is my mom, Karen, my little sister, Lisa. That's Lisa's baby doll. There I am, and that's my dad. This is our first law firm. It was a gas station in La Junta, Colorado, about 8,000 people. One of the first things my parents did after they got married is convert that gas station into a law firm. And from there, we've built to a bigger firm. We're based in Colorado Springs. We have offices in Denver and a city called Pueblo, Colorado as well. And from the beginning, our focus has always been on capturing data and then leveraging that data. And it sounds kind of benign to say it like that, but there is a reason why we focused on it. But we also have understood from the beginning, as we continue to do, that there's a philosophy behind data management and how you leverage it. And I think that kind of informs why we're all using Litify right now. And to use it effectively, there are some things I think it's important to know. One, understand that every input that you put into your system, whether it's Litify or some other program, those inputs aren't always going to be uniform. So you have to have a system that's able to handle the disparate data that you're feeding it. One of the goals is to make that data more available to more people. You also, in any system that you have, want to reduce the time that you spend accessing the data, and you want to be able to improve the transfer of that data from one person to another, from department to another, one program to another. As I said, we've been building this firm since 1974. We're not the only business that was founded in 1974. Alamo Rent-A-Car, Fred Loya Insurance, Fantastic Sam's Foot Locker, the Australian UGG, apparently there are two of them, but this is UGG since 1974, and my favorite, the Black Hills Institute of Geological Research, because they're the ones who discovered Sioux. You all know who Sioux is? One of the most complete, if not the largest, skeletal remains of Tyrannosaurus rex, and prominently displayed at the Chicago Field Museum. Again, this is my family. This is in 1988 maybe. So in 1974, I wasn't actually in the picture. I didn't come around until a few years later. They had been starting the data harnessing. They'd started it prior to that. My mom, Karen, who is currently our president. My dad is the chairman right now. I am actually, as of last week, I've taken over the management responsibilities. I'm now the CEO, and my sister is the director of marketing. Do you guys see a theme here? The theme is the 1990s. She doesn't look like that anymore. I don't look like that anymore. But we were kicking things off. We've always been well-intentioned. We've been a purpose-driven firm, goal-oriented, and sometimes successful. When we started the firm in 1974, we, my mom and my dad, we used a Rolodex. That was our first CRM system. And then in 1976, we moved to the Thermofax. There are not many of you probably in the room, and again, I have to include myself in this, that have ever used a Rolodex in its traditional sense. And we think of it as, keeping track of people's information, their telephone number, their name, and everything, but we've used the Rolodex as our client management system. Every person that we represented, every client got a card in our Rolodex system. If you had more than one case, you had more than one card. Now, there's a challenge with that. If you have multiple people working on a case, you have to hand the cards around and cards get lost. In 1976, we added the Thermofax to our operation and quickly became the most popular business in La Junta. A thermofax is just a cheaper copy machine, like a Xerox, but it wasn't as much money. You put a little piece of paper in, there's this thermal sheet that goes over it, and then the heat transfers on the carbon, and voila. We had people lining out the door to just come and see our thermofax at work. 1980, this thing came around. The equivalent of $32,000 for the IBM Display Writer. This thing could do a lot. Brought a demonstrative aid here. Now some of you, most of you will probably recognize this as a floppy disk. The ones I was more familiar with were about 5 1/4 inches. This is an 8-inch floppy, and it holds about 80 kilobytes of data. And you would have your software program on here, you'd put it in, it would load up some stuff, you could save your correspondence, your email, everything. If you're using DocRio, if you're using some other type of paper management system now, document management system. That's what this was for. This is not unfamiliar to anybody who ever had a display writer and a law library on the same space, but it's how we did business. And then in 1991, we started networking our computers. This is one of the contributions I made when I was younger. I helped create the whole daisy chain system at our office, linking one computer to another, to another, to another. And at the same time I was doing that, my mom was working on creating our first client database management system. And it's like putting an engine in a buggy. This has allowed us to accelerate our growth. Now, again, I'm telling this to a room full of people who are, as prior speakers have said, are using Litify or are thinking about using Litify. So we are miles and miles and miles ahead of where we were in the 1990s. But we weren't aware of any system that could do this. Now, it turns out there were systems that could do this. There were software programs out there at the time. But again, we're a small firm, small family, small business. We weren't going to conventions like this. So my mom built our first database management system using DataPerfect. And it was a labor of love. These are the fields that she put together. And it's essentially created the world's most complicated murder board. You guys know what a murder board is? If you watch enough murder mysteries, I watch them all the time, they're always putting up a suspect's name and they draw a line to somebody else, and that's essentially what she's doing. And I think too many of us take for granted how complex these systems are. When we put information into a field in Litify, all of the things that follow from that information, how they're connected. You put a client's name in and then it pops up on the next screen. You put their date of birth in and it triggers the reminder that it's their birthday coming up. And this is what it would look like. She put all of these things together, and they came out in this 3-ring thing. I am not going to go through all of them, or really any of them. But this is what it took at our firm to start really leveraging the data that we had. This is what a Schlotzsky's menu looked like when we were doing this. You get a sandwich for, well, it says $3.19, but I think at this point the friendly people raised the price to $3.99. Our family ate, slept, breathed this database system and building this database system. So we have been working on tools to harness this data in a software form since the early 90s. It's allowed us to maybe get some efficiencies. But it's clear coming to a place like this how far advanced these other tools are beyond this Schlotzsky-driven program that we had. Dinners at El Pollo Loco, which was down the street, and I shouldn't say every night, we did eat at other places too. But my mom would pick us up from school. We'd go straight to the law firm. She would keep working on the database system. My dad was working with clients. My sister and I were doing homework. I was helping to piece the computers together. We'd go eat at El Pollo Loco, and all we would do was talk about data and data fields and how to integrate these data fields. And we would go back to the office and build those out. Data's only as good. Systems are only as good, I should say, as the data you put in. You're familiar with the garbage in, garbage out philosophy. If you put in junk, you're going to get junk out. It's just as a reminder. By the way, if anybody's wondering where this is going, it's really not going anywhere. You've got about 10 more minutes before the next speaker, so if you need to step out, get a drink, and come back, don't miss them. They're in the back. It's important because you're going to spend a lot of time trying to validate the data. So make sure put in systems at the front end to make sure that the data that is going into the system is accurate. And that may mean people systems, making sure that you have controls in place so that you're not adding a provider if there's already a provider in there, that when you are adding a provider, you know these are the things that need to go in for every provider so that you have data integrity. And this is a good example of why that's important. Who the hell is Goldie Fox? And where is her file? It was said with maybe a bit more anger, frustration, and then followed by maybe some destructive noises from my dad's old law partner, because he came to work and spent the better part of a morning trying to find the Goldie Fox file. Well, Goldie Fox is the name that my sister wrote down over the weekend when she was pretending to be a receptionist when she was a little girl. And she left that name on the little scratch pad where you take phone messages. But my sister's very creative, so it wasn't just the name Goldie Fox. Then she also put a thing down about why Goldie Fox was calling. Again, it's important to validate the data that's going into your system, or you will spend a lot of time chasing the Goldie Fox file. This is true for every single person in here. It's a challenge. Getting data in is why we're here. Getting data out is why these vendors are here to help us. You've got to identify if your problem is with incomplete data or if it's incorrect data. Those need to be addressed. Don't minimize the fact that you might have data, you might have fields, but if it's incomplete, it's not going to be very valuable. So have protocols in place to make sure that you know exactly what's the type of data that you want put into your system so that people know they have to follow these steps to make sure that you're not putting in the wrong data. Reports won't work. Well, audit reports will work. They're great. If you can run an audit report telling you where the data is missing, that's very helpful. But if you're relying on a report to tell you how to interpret the data and you've got incomplete data in there, it's useless. So just focus on the quality of the data that's going in. And as Chad said this morning, sometimes our challenge isn't that we don't have enough data, it's that we have too much data. And so it's important to periodically go through and figure out, do we need to pull out some of these fields? Are we asking the right questions? Are we just getting too much superfluous information into our system that's then cluttering our ability to actually work the cases and think clearly through things? So, what have we done well? Well, that's debatable. I'm not sure. As I walk around here and I hear people speak, I think, gosh, we should be doing that. Why aren't we doing that? Well, we have done some things well. I'm proud of some of the things that we've done. I'm very proud of the firm. But what we've done with Litify is allowed us to monitor data in real time, as it is for everybody here. And it's allowing us to put systems in place to try to automate decisions that somebody needs to make. When a case comes in, who's going to handle the case at the firm? You can have systems where, depending on the size of your firm, it is just, honestly, just next person up. This is the next case manager that's going to get the case because they were the last in line now. So they've moved up the line, or the attorney that's going to get it. If you're just one attorney, well, you know who's going to handle the case. You are. But what we've developed are tools that allow us to just determine in real time what the allocation right now of any attorney's caseload is or paralegal's caseload is. To find out, you know what, now they might be up next chronologically, but this is the wrong case for them because their caseload is skewed too high right now. Their caseloads are too high. The value of their cases is too low, so we know this is a case that needs to be worked up better. Allowing us to make those informed decisions and maybe automating some of that too as a way of then informing the attorneys for us. Hey, by the way, this is the reason you're not getting any cases this week. Because your caseload allocation is skewed because of underperformance, you're not meeting certain metrics. Time on desk, effective task completion, these are all things that I think most people are doing, but if you're not, it's helpful to remember there's a useful tool called Litify that allows you to do all of this stuff and identify those bottlenecks early on. Again, automating the process, like with caseloads, for example, the complex cases need to go to this particular team, and you can automate a lot of that. If you have clients who speak different languages, automate the process of identifying what the team's going to handle as people that are going to be speaking a particular language or more comfortable with it. Matter types and the region, too, if you're operating in more than one particular geographical area, identifying, and this is great for, what Rainwater's team talked about, making sure they know where those cases are going to go among their multiple offices there. Conflict checks is another big thing that is very difficult. I know a lot of firms are challenged with this too. I mean, a client calls and there could be a conflict for any number of different reasons. And so having a system in place that knows exactly what it needs to look for to identify as reasonably as possible and as quickly as possible where you might have a conflict. We've worked very hard with Litify to bake that system in. So we have, I think, a very solid degree of confidence that when we bring a case in, we're getting the flags telling us, hey, there's a conflict here. I mean, a potential conflict, whether it's the date of the incident or it's the defendant's name matches the plaintiff's name from the next case, things like that. A challenge for all of this is, and I brought this up at the beginning, not all data inputs are identical. And so if you have different types of data, it is a challenge to meld them together. One of the things that we do is, Chad talks about like the speed reviews, the 1-minute reviews, and that can be helpful, obviously. Sometimes what you have to do, though, is a little bit more involved, and that's certainly what we do periodically with our attorneys. We go through their entire caseload, and it's an exercise for them in making sure they really understand what's going on, and that from a management level, in addition to just looking at reports, but we're having a meaningful conversation about how they're handling their cases, what might be missed, what's the human element to a case that isn't going to be picked up just with the software programs. Again, looking at the data, though. And so what we have is a system with a keystroke now, or a button in Litify. It's aggregating data from different objects within Litify. So not just the fields, but certain information, stuff from DocRio, which is our document management system, so that we get a snapshot, 2-pager, essentially, of the key issues with that particular case, and allows me to work with the attorneys and say, okay, some of it's just like, where did the accident happen? Like, where's the intersection? What kind of an accident was it? Things like that. But we're challenged with things, too. And so I want to get to that because I'm running out of time here. That was the case review strategy that I was just talking about. And again, some of what you're putting into the system is what I call nice to know. Like, it's really nice to know certain things about a client if you're going to then act on it. If you're a firm that sends out birthday cards, you're obviously getting their date of birth in the system anyway. But then you're automating, sending out birthday cards, for example. Some firms, I know Carter, we learned this from Carter Marius from a long time ago. The color of somebody's eye, your client's eyes. Are you putting that in the system? Not because you really need to know if they have blue eyes or green eyes, but it's an exercise in the human connection. Because if you know what color of eyes they have, it means that you've looked them in the eye. And not everybody's going to look them in the eye. So these are kind of what I call nice to know. That's not going to drive the case, but it might drive the relationship with the client. Well, where do we go from here? We have challenges, and so if there's anybody in the room with a solution to these things, please let me know. Mail ingestion. Again, this is something, if you want to have this data in a paper format, you can scan it in, and can you automate the process then of getting that information, and I think AI is going to do this sooner than later, pulling the relevant pieces of information from that physical document and then putting it where it needs to go in Litify. Curtis, you're nodding your head. So that's a confirmation Litify will be able to do this for us. Again, disparate data types. We've got HEIC files from an iPhone, for example. Yes, you can upload these photos in there, but how do you automate getting that into certain places within Litify? That's been a challenge for us, certain types of docs, like zip docs, for example. And again, just trying to make sure that we get the right data to the right people in a way that they can act on it. The goal, again, make better decisions, be more efficient, and improve the bottom line. Just remember, you can have too much data. Sometimes you can't have enough, but data has a tendency to grow. And my proof is the 97,344 photos I had in my phone of my children. My daughter's 13, my son is 10, and by the way, that's only from the last several years. When I was working on this presentation for our first LitiQuest schedule in Tampa, it's now 110,868 photos of my kids. I have somehow accumulated 13,000 more photos of my kids in the last 3 months. I am their least favorite person because I'm always taking their photo. But I know something. To technology is going to evolve to a point where I'm going to be really happy that I have all of those photos because the tech will just continue to do more and more things for me with those photos. It already does. Like, I want a bottle of wine. I want to remember what wine did I have. I just go and type in the word wine into like Apple Photos or Google Photos, and it shows me all the wine bottles in my photo album. And it's going to continue to do these things. So if you have the data, the technology will follow. Thank you.